The Oracl Network.
We have an active shooter. We have an active shooter inside the warehouse.
Welcome to Active Shooter, a podcast that covers the whys, the hows, and the aftermath of active shooter and mass casualty events.
They have an active shooter in the building. A second call says they are being attacked.
I've been shot. 16910 means we got shots fired. 4:15 a.m. Route 291. Sounded like an automatic firearm.
Active shooter, reports of an active shooter,
mass casualty incidents.
Thank you for listening.
You are listening to Active Shooter, a podcast that may contain adult themes, explicit language, and graphic depictions of violence. Portions of this show may be traumatic for those under 18. Listener discretion is advised.
Breaking news tonight, at least 4 people are dead and more than a dozen injured after workplace shooting happening across several locations. Good evening, I'm Sharon Taswell.
And I'm Sean Murray, thanks for joining us. The sheriff in Hesston, the small town about 30 miles north of Wichita, addressed the media within the past hour, saying one of his own took hits to save others.
Yeah, this happened at Excel Industries, a manufacturing plant that makes lawnmowers and other turf care products.
The gunman, we're told, was an employee. He is among the dead.
Today's case happened 5 days after the Kalamazoo Uber shooting, which we covered in episode 27. The two cases are somewhat alike because there was more than one crime scene and little rhyme or reason as to why it happened. In both instances, a man with a gun made the forbidding decision to enact his sick sense of control over innocent groups of people by choosing to play God, deciding who would live and who would die. Both incidents occurred in the Midwest, in the late afternoon, early evening hours. Both shooters inflicted the kind of trauma that runs so deeply that merely existing becomes a difficult task. Both shootings happened when the victims and co-victims were doing everyday tasks, so ordinary that taking your surroundings for granted is a given. For the residents of both Newton and Hesston, Kansas, and the employees of Excel Industries, February 25, 2016 was not a typical day to be taken for granted. What began as a regular Thursday took a turn that those unfortunate enough to experience the tragedy of this day will never forget. For 26 minutes, a shooter terrorized a community and his employer for reasons totally unknown.
Active Shooter the podcast is a High Five Holly production, and I'm your host, JT. If you've listened to our prior episodes, you know that the Active Shooter podcast team has taken the no notoriety pledge, and we will not be sharing the real name of the shooters that we cover. We will be giving the shooters a pseudonym and refer to them by that name throughout the episode. This will help in clearing up any confusion in the story, while remaining true to our pledge and not naming the shooter by their actual name. We will refer to today's shooter as Fred.
On February 25, 2016, 38-year-old Fred was angry and ready to commit the most atrocious act one could imagine. You see, about 90 minutes earlier, he was served with a type of restraining order called a PFA, or protection from abuse, while at work. It was embarrassing, and the humiliation only served to infuriate him, enough that it may have been the final straw that caused Fred to cause so much destruction and harm, killing 3 innocents and injuring another 14 people. However, when the order was served, he seemed to accept it as well as one could. A temporary order was previously served on Fred on February 5th, but it wasn't made permanent until the 25th, It contained a provision that Fred was not to enter the petitioner or person seeking the protective order's home, and was not permitted to contact that person's children. After the permanent PFA was hand-served on Fred, he departed Excel Industries, a company that manufactures turf equipment and lawnmowers, and he headed home. The time was 4:57 p.m., and Fred readied himself with a Zastava Arms NPAP DF M70 semi-automatic rifle and a Glock 22 semi-automatic pistol. His landlord noticed Fred storming from his mobile home with a weapon and furiously racing away in his truck. The landlord was heading Fred's way because there had been complaints by one of the neighbors who thought Fred's music was blaring. He intended to request that Fred lower the volume, but after seeing how Fred was approaching the truck, the landlord thought better of it. As Fred drove away, he approached an intersection in Newton, and as he neared the traffic light, Fred raised his firearm and shot at 2 different passing vehicles. The first vehicle was driven by a man with his 2 children. The man was shot in his shoulder. Edner Decker was driving another car when Fred drove past, stopped his car, jumped out, aimed fire, and started shooting. His vehicle crashed into another, causing the other vehicle to veer into a ditch. Edner was blocked and couldn't get around the stopped cars. She noticed Fred was waving towards her to get out of her vehicle. She realized he was beginning to shoot again, so she ducked down into the passenger seat just as a bullet pierced her windshield, whizzed past her head, and exited through the rear passenger window.
I had been shopping in Newton, bought groceries and stuff, and I usually come home down Highway 50 and down Ridge because we live right on this end of town. But I knew that there was construction on 50 and you would be stopped for up to 10 minutes. So I decided to get off on Meridian and come down Meridian 81. And I noticed after the stop sign or stop light at First Street that there was a car right behind me. Didn't think much of it because it's a busy street. And I thought he was following pretty close. When we got to 12th Street, I thought, well, he'll pass me as soon as we get past this. And he did. He passed me really fast and speeded up, and so I started speeding up. And all of a sudden, I saw his brake lights go on. And it took me a little bit to realize he'd come to a dead stop and that he was partially into the center of the road. And so I slammed on my brakes because I knew I couldn't get around him. And by the time I had come to a dead stop, he'd gotten out of his vehicle, and I saw that he had an assault gun, a big gun. It wasn't just a small rifle or pistol. Or not a rifle, not just a small pistol. It was a big, they call it FK-44 or whatever. And I just thought, I'm dead. That was my first impulse. He came within about a foot of my driver's side window and tried to motion for me. I had the radio on. Tried to motion for me to get out of the car. And I hesitated and I kind of shook my head slowly that I wasn't going to do that. And I saw him lift up his gun, and I knew he was going to shoot. I just knew. And so my first impulse was lay down. And so I was laid to the side and laid straight over the console onto the other seat, like that. And I heard the gun as I was going down. And I thought, well, he'll shoot me again in the back, because I realized that he had missed me. But he didn't. And after laying in bed, I thought, well, I'll get up and look. And he had walked a ways away, 10 feet or so, and he was reloading or redoing his gun. And at the same time, there was several vehicles, I think a car and a pickup, coming from the other side, the other lane.
Fred walked up to another car, shot the driver in the leg, and stole the vehicle. The entire scene was like something out of a bad movie, or the video game Grand Theft Auto. But this wasn't a movie, or a game. It was disturbingly real and made for a hideous diversion to the absolute horror that Fred intended to inflict. He drove along old U.S. Route 81 and continued to wield his weapon, shooting at random towards oncoming traffic as he weaved his stolen car in and out of passing cars. His destination, Excel Industries, was approximately 6 miles from the first shooting scene. Fred arrived and parked in the northeast area of the plant's parking lot. At the same time, an older woman was walking through the parking lot, so Fred shot her as casually as if he had merely waved hello.
Heard him yell something, that's what got our attention, turned around, hopped out with AK-47, it appeared like, and fired a few shots outside before he went in, and then ducked down and went into the building.
Leaving the injured woman behind, Fred entered the building and started shooting towards the assembly lines. Again, the shooting appeared random, and there was instant chaos in the shop. Employees were running for their lives, shouting "Fire!" which was the company's code word for trouble, such as an active shooting.
Medic 1's en route.
Medic 110-4. It's going to be the area of Northwest 12th and Meridian. Have a report of somebody being shot. If you could just stand off for law enforcement for now.
Unfortunately, most of the employees were accustomed to loud noises, so many didn't even realize there was an emergency at first. Some employees even wore earplugs during their shifts, protecting their ears from the machine's ear-splitting noise, which further prevented many from understanding that there was an active shooting taking place before their very workstations. Some thought the noise they heard was metal falling, or even a gas fire.
I thought like a mower was backfiring or like some pallets were dropping. I didn't really think nothing of it at first, and then I seen people running and it still didn't click. And one of my friends that was shot, his aunt, she was running, she's like, "Hold on, someone's shooting."
An employee, Adam Miller, was shot in the leg, the arm, and twice in the chest. But amazingly, he survived.
I was gonna die. Honestly, like, I didn't know what was gonna happen. I mean, I seen the shooter at first. I didn't know what was going on, and then I seen the shooter, and it actually hit me what was going on, and I really thought I was gonna die. Nah, I didn't see him shoot me. I seen him shoot 2 other people though. As I was getting ready to be transported outside, he came up and shoot 2 of the guys that were helping me make it outside.
An eyewitness later reported that Fred seemed to hesitate for several moments before shooting, mainly with the rifle. However, once he started, it was pure mayhem. Yet, it was a controlled frenzy of action, as employees tore their articles of clothing, creating tourniquets and bandages for the injured, focusing on helping those who appeared most injured, and doing their mightiest to save each one of their coworkers.
We got a shooter! Everybody to the side!
Harvey County 911.
We have an active shooter at Excel Industries. We have multiple injuries.
Okay. We have that information. Do you know where he's at?
He is in Plant 4 right now.
Plant 4?
Yes.
Okay.
I got people all over the place. I don't know. I can't account for anybody.
Okay, what's your name?
Harvey County 911.
Yeah, we've got an emergency up here at Excel. We have shots fired.
Where at in Excel?
We're in the front office right now. They're out there somewhere on the floor shooting.
Do you know how many, where at, just in Plant 4?
Plant 1, up here in Plant 1 that we know of. That we know of, but they're by the front offices.
How many people are hit?
People are hit.
How many people?
3 or more. Multiple people shot all over this freaking place.
Okay.
It's a black male.
It's a black male?
No weapon. He's in the office. We're all across the street.
He's in the office?
There's one car on feed, the police car. There's another one.
Harvey County 911.
Yeah, I need a police and medical and XL car, or XL lawnmower.
At XL?
We have people that shot.
We do have people on the way to XL. Where are you located?
I'm in Plant 1. We got people down.
Plant 1. How many patients do you have?
Four people shot.